Good afternoon. My name is Tom, and today's video is about money. Now, I'm going to be doing a couple of follow ups, maybe some shorts here and there, but this is the video that will lay a little bit of groundwork because, right now things are happening. Some good, some bad, and, we don't really necessarily get great education on what to do with our money, how to spend it, where to invest it. And oftentimes you end up coming to some guy on the internet like me. And we're not financial advisors, we're not professionals, but since I do some prep stuff, I can at least give you my thoughts and my opinions based on what education I do have in it, what seems to be working out for me. And it's not necessarily going to work out for you. Everybody's situation is different. And so, financial advisors are where you get professional information. But at least as a start, we can discuss some basics. So, we'll start off with your basic expenses. One of the first things you get paid. You now have a stack of cash. What are you going to do with all of it? Well, first things first, you have to pay yourself. Your housing expenses, generally speaking, always have to come first. That is what you must protect the most. You need an address, in order to have a freaking job. 99.9% of the time. So you need a place to live. Generally, you want your housing expense to be no more than 25% of your income. Now, yeah, good luck with that, especially if you're in your 20s and just starting out. So, maybe try to keep your housing expenses below 33% of your income. And then hopefully you use that 25% as a goal you want to achieve. 25%, okay, so if I made $200, well, let's say I made $200 a day, 25% of that is $50. Okay, that means every day I should be putting aside $50 for my housing expenses, I don't get paid daily, obviously, but 40 hours a week, 5 days a week, that means 50 times 5 is $250 per week. So for roughly 4 weeks a month, mortgage $1,000 or rent $1,000. Adjust as necessary. But that's the general idea of it. Okay, so we got that taken care of. Next, we got to consider our food and utilities, cost of living stuff, your electricity and all that other stuff. Again, we're looking at another 25% minimum, but let's just say it's a little more than that, and it's like 33%. We'll say maybe a third of it, especially because right now there's a massive bird flu outbreak. There is oil refineries in Russia getting bombed to hell and back because, they decided not to respect people's borders. And so cost of living will go up a bit. Food and fuel, which also covers your transportation to work. Your electricity bill may be influenced by fuel prices and so forth. So let's just say maybe 33%, but ideally your target is to get that to 25%. All right. So now you have spent anywhere between 50% and 66% of your wages. That leaves you with, another 50% to go with, and that you need to consider what you're going to do with. All right, so my 1/3 to 50%. It's important that you actually take the time for your hobbies your video games, music, something. Have to have some recreational time, but you also need to make sure you're prepared for emergencies. So where's my coffee can? Here's my short-term savings. My emergency cash. Okay, coffee can. We went and decided that all loose change, and at the end of the week, let's say I get paid on Friday, whatever cash I have left from last Friday that isn't already in the bank is going or invested somewhere or whatever, it's going into my coffee can. All my loose change, all singles, and all $5 bills. Okay, so what does that do? Well, it doesn't do a whole lot initially, but it just goes in the coffee can. It gets put out of sight. I don't actually see it except when I'm putting something into it. All right, now I've got a flat tire. 8 months later. Time to break out the coffee can because I need a new tire. And that's when that short-term, small emergency savings comes in handy. Or maybe I'm going to treat myself and buy the next-gen video game system. And, all that money that I haven't touched in the last year and a half, all those pennies, nickels, dimes, quarters, and singles and fives adds up. And that can go towards my next-gen video game system. All right, but like I said, you're only putting change and singles and fives in there. You're basically putting, maybe 1 to 3% of your money into that. You might be spending 10 to 15% of your income on your hobbies, like maybe you like going to nightclubs or you like Dungeons and Dragons books and playing, RPGs with your friends. Or maybe you like coin collecting. Now this is interesting because coin collecting, this is not just a hobby, but it is also a form of savings. These are old quarters. And the old quarters are actually 90% silver. I have no idea what the price of silver is going to do. I have guesses. I don't know. I can't guarantee it's going to do anything, except it'll go up and it'll go down in value. But, hey, I've got a nice little collection. I've got books of books that I can fill in with quarters and dimes and so forth. And, I just fill it out and try to find, certain dates specifically. And you know what? Maybe as I collect these old silver quarters in another 10 or 20 years, they might actually be worth more money. I have no idea. A lot of people swear by it. I'm not sure I do. But I believe in a diversity of tactics, and so I've got a hobby and I've got savings here. I mean, admittedly, this is only like a book of quarters, and how much could it possibly be? But each one of the quarters in here at face value, they cost maybe $4 to $5 per quarter, maybe $6 if silver tends to get really expensive. And maybe in 10 years, they could be worth $10 per quarter. They could be worth $3 per quarter. You don't know. But diversity of tactics and savings. So I've got my short-term savings. I've got my hobby / long-term savings. Don't worry about the price, especially on long-term investments. You should have multiple if you can do that. But, your long-term investments, some of them will pan out and some of them won't. Your retirement savings, you should be putting maybe 5 to 10% of your income towards retirement. These are options, IRA, Roth IRA, 401k. If you're young, please start a 401k early, especially if your employer matches what your contribution is, because that's free benefit money that you can only get by investing in your retirement. Now, if you got a pension, I like that too. But you should always find a way you know, maybe maybe it sucks to actually have to give up that 5% or 10% of your pay, but the sooner you get over that initial pinch, the better. Um, I had no real I had no real hope of achieving a reasonable retirement because I didn't start early, and it wasn't until I was 35 and I became very, very fortunate with the organizations that I take part in that I actually had a realistic opportunity for retirement. Would have been better if I started saving, as an 18-year-old, actually 19-year-old, enlisted in the military's thrift savings plan, which is a 401k but with a different name. Um, but I didn't, and that's on me. But I put money into that stuff now. Now, the IRAs and the 401ks, there's people out there who say, well, the government could take that money away from you. Don't listen to them. Technically, they're right. The government could do whatever it wants. It's a government. The government could declare Hawaiian Shirt Fridays will now be celebrated on Tuesday instead. That doesn't mean they're going to. A financial advisor is the sort of people who could tell you whether or not it's time for you to put your money in an IRA or a 401k. And some guy on the internet, or some guy at work, or some guy on the street, and for the love of God, do not listen to some guy on 24-hour news networks when they tell you the government could do something. They're just trying to get you riled up. They're playing with your emotions, like a kitten playing with a ball of string. They don't care about you. The 24-hour news networks who say things like that, they're trying to keep your butt glued to the seat for their advertisers. The guy on the internet with the podcast who makes all of his money selling natural male enhancement pills and energy drinks, he's just taking advantage of you. He's just getting you angry and keeping your butt glued to the seat for his ad revenue and sales revenue. Don't listen to them. If you want to know what the government's going to do, or if you want to have a clue as to what the government's going to do, you need to pay an actual, real, live professional, not some jerk with a microphone playing with your emotions. All right, so we got all that. I believe in a diversity of tactics, however, so let's look at some other investments. I don't have documents or pictures that could represent stock, but I do have this. All right, so this is a startup company that's been doing really well. They sell liquor alternatives. This one is a zero proof rum, and it's a gamble. You have no idea if a startup like this is going to work out. It may seem absolutely ridiculous to some folks because who wants non-alcoholic alcohol? And it may seem like a smart move to other people because maybe they see that market forces are shifting in terms of social engagement and alcohol consumption. So that's a startup. You don't know how that's going to end. Maybe you get lucky. But if you're going to buy into something like that, buy it and ignore your stock for the next 5 years minimum. Sure, pay attention to 6-month or annual reports, but you're not truly going to know what that's going to do until years later. Same with green energy technologies and solar fields. There's a lot of companies out there trying to innovate ways to make green energy more efficient, make solar panels more efficient. Sometimes they hit a home run and sometimes they collapse. So that's more high stakes. If you buy in when they've been around for like 2 years and suddenly they're like, minimum $2,000 investment but if you get in at the ground level and it's still a cheap stock and it takes off, maybe you will get lucky. Just remember, 9 out of 10 ventures do not 9 out of 10 ventures will be a loss. And if you're really good, you'll hit that 10% window where you get one that takes off and hopefully covers your losses on the other 9. That's how venture capitalism works. So you got to be very careful if you're going to play that game. Then there's, and this is my representation of precious metals investing. You can invest, if you're very fortunate, in stock in like gold and silver, and that will go up and it will go down. It's the only thing that's certain about any sort of stock. But generally speaking, precious metals are considered to be a more steady investment than day trading, and especially a more steady investment than venture capitalism investments. It's rare that you'll see a crash in gold or silver. Disclaimer, they do happen. 2011, I think, was a horror show for silver. Went from like $50 an ounce to, well, I don't know if it got down to single digits, but it came close. Then there's the literal physical precious metal. This is, I went and I picked this up for this video specifically. This is just a shiny piece of silver with a buffalo nickel, I guess you could say a buffalo nickel style design on it. And, one day that might be worth $22, and another day it might be worth $27. Generally speaking, this is like the poor man's method of investing in precious metals. If you were to buy, I guess, 1 ounce a month as your goal, well, hey, it may work out. Or maybe you want to try to buy 4 ounces or 5 ounces per month, whatever. That's not a bad idea necessarily, but it's also not necessarily a good idea. You don't know where that's going to end up. Because a lot of people tend to jump onto physical precious metal when doomers get involved and they tell you the economy is going to collapse and the dollar is weak and you need to you need to invest in real money because, in their mind, that $50 I put out before is not real money, but this hunk of silver that doesn't actually have, a dollar amount printed on it, they'll consider that real money. And you know what? People can debate what is and what isn't real money. I'm not getting involved in it. I'm just getting involved in the idea that things have value. And maybe if you believe in a diversity of tactics, this is a good idea. But I would not just say dump all your savings into silver. You want that retirement savings. It may be wise to invest in stocks, and it may be wise to invest in physical precious metals. It's all a guess, and you should talk to a professional, a financial advisor, to make an informed decision. But first things first, pay for your housing expenses, pay for your cost of living expenses. Then you've paid yourself already. Splurge on your hobby, but don't go crazy. And what's left over goes into your short-term savings and your long-term savings. That's all. Have a lovely day.